All right, thank you all so much for coming. We're so happy to welcome you here as part of Rutgers Democracy Week. And this is an event that's co-sponsored by the Rutgers Democracy Lab and the Center for American Women in Politics, which is where I work. I'm the Associate Director. I'm Jean Sinzdak. I'm the Associate Director at the Center for American Women in Politics, which is a unit of the Eagleton Institute of Politics, which is the building that you're sitting in right now. So I'm so happy to see you all. I am thrilled. I'm going to introduce the panelists, and we're going to jump right into this discussion. And then we may have some time for Q&A, but we've also built in time at the end of this, a half hour for networking. So then you can really hit them up for internships or jobs or advice, any of the things you want. I'm going to go down the line. I tried to shorten the bios. Let me tell you something. You are in for a treat. If you want to learn about government, these are 4 powerhouses in the state of New Jersey. And their bios are really, really long. So, because they've done so many incredible things. But let me start. Immediately to my right is Alexis Bailey. She joined Public Strategies Impact in 2023 after serving as Vice President of Government Affairs for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. While at NJBIA, she covered labor and employment, workforce development, and insurance issues impacting the state's business community. Prior to NJBIA, Alexis worked as a legislative research associate for Kaufman Zeta Group and as government affairs and communications consultant for the New Jersey Public Charter Schools Association. She's been recognized in a number of, so many ways actually, but I would say among them are ROINJ's Influencers Women in Business list in 2023 and their Influencers People of Color list in 2022 and 23, and Insider NJ's Millennials to Watch list in 2020. She also was honored as a phenomenal woman under 40 by the Girl Scouts of the Jersey Shore in 2022. She's involved in her community as a member of the Toms River Zoning Board of Adjustments and member at large of the Girl Scouts of Jersey Shore's Board of Directors. And she serves on Rider University's Bronx of the Last Decade Alumni Committee. So welcome, Alexis. Next to her is Arlene Quiñones Perez. She's an equity partner with DeCotiis, FitzPatrick Cole, and Gimlin. She joined the firm in 2015. Before that, she served as general counsel to the Northeast Regional Council of Carpenters. And she has also served as a judicial term law clerk for United States District Judge Michael A. Shipp. Prior to joining the federal district court, she was an attorney with Murphy Orlando and a registered lobbyist with Impact NJ. She has also served as the chair of the Hunterdon County Democratic Committee and as a councilwoman in the township of Clinton, where she was the youngest member of the municipality's governing body and the only Hispanic woman to serve as an elected official in Hunterdon County. She has served as president of the Hispanic Bar Association and is a member of the Supreme Court Committee on Women in the Judiciary. She has been featured in Hispanic Executive Magazine, listed by Politicker NJ on the 40 Under 40 Power List, and has been named one of New Jersey's top 50 rising stars. In 2009, she received the National Association of Women Lawyers Award, and she graduated from law school at Rutgers Camden. So welcome, Arlene. Next to Arlene, we have Christine Shipley, who is Managing Director at Stevens & Lee Public Affairs. She has more than 25 years of strategic advisory experience in New Jersey state government. She advises clients across industries on key executive proposals and legislative developments that may impact their businesses and markets. She served for 10 years as the executive director of the New Jersey Senate Republican Office, where she developed close ties with legislators and staff on both sides of the aisle. Additionally, she served as the Senate Republican Caucus as Deputy Executive Director, Director of Research and Chief Counsel, and as an Assistant Counsel in the Office of Chief Counsel for Governor Christine Todd Whitman. Just a few things. She also has experience working in Pennsylvania state government as a legislative analyst in the Office of Legislative Affairs in the Pennsylvania Department of Education for Governor Tom Ridge. She has also interned with the Pennsylvania General Assembly Republican legal staff. She is a strong believer in mentoring up-and-coming leaders, and she is presented here at Eagleton. Actually, I think all of you have at different ways, different times, presented in Eagleton, and at the Rowan Institute for Public Policy and Citizenship, and in our new leadership program, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. But anyway, welcome, Christine. And last but certainly not least, we have Catherine Tung, who is Government Affairs Advisor at the law firm McCarter English. She advocates for clients across a variety of industries, providing them with strategic advice and insight, and helping them navigate the complex processes and regulations of government. Before joining McCarter, she served as the Associate Executive Director of the New Jersey Assembly Office, where she acted as a trusted advisor to the Speaker of the General Assembly and members of the Assembly's Democratic leadership. She's worked closely with elected officials and stakeholders on both sides of the aisle to develop public policy in a variety of areas. She currently is serving as an Eagleton Visiting Associate and Adjunct Professor, and she began her career as an Education and Government Affairs Coordinator for the New Jersey Apartment Association. Welcome, Kat. And I'm going to tell you, I really shortened those bios, and yet they're so impressive. So thank you all again for being here. I want to start with the first question to get us started, because I just read your bios, which I'm sure you all have absorbed and remember everything I said. If you could, tell us what you're currently doing and give us some highlights of your career, with the idea that I'm trying to paint the picture of the different types of careers that people can have, and you all have worked in government affairs or as an elected official or, in a legislative office as a staffer, those kinds of things. So I'll start with you, Alexis, and we'll go down from there.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. So I started in politics after doing a ton of internships. My first job was with a lobbying firm, which I think is kind of unique. I think a lot of people start more on the campaign side or working for legislators, but I had an opportunity to work as a legislative research associate with a lobbying firm, Kaufman Zeta Group. So that was a great experience for me to learn from the lobbyists and see what they do, see client management, how they interact with legislators, deal with their clients' priorities. So I started there. My next job after that, I actually worked for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association as a lobbyist. And I got that job because I was an intern while I was in college there. And they had an opening. And Chrissy Butis, who's my boss and was an incredible mentor to me, even still today, called and said, "Hey, I have this job. Do you think you want to do it?" And I was 23, not that I'm much older now, but I was like, there's no way I can be a lobbyist for NJBIA. Like, I thought they were the coolest, biggest lobbyists in Trenton and dealt with really difficult issues. So I was really nervous at first to take that job. And I called another mentor of mine and was like, "Hey, they offered me the labor and employment job. What do you think?" And he's like, "Do you know anything about labor bills?" And I was like, "Not really." And he's like, "Well, you can learn." So I kind of took the leap and jumped in to do that. And it was the greatest decision I ever made. I say it's a lot of like trial by fire to do labor and employment issues under the Murphy administration. There was a lot of bills that I was opposed to all the time, but really made me have to be tough and smart on the issues that I was talking about to be a reliable source to the legislature when I got up to advocate for the business community. And then after that, I started in my current role with Public Strategies Impact. And that was another opportunity that came to me. They kind of called me and said, "Hey, we have an opening. We really like the work that you do at NJBIA. What do you think about coming over to the contract lobbying side?" And that was kind of my ultimate goal. I always wanted to work at a contract lobbying firm. So I was really happy to have that opportunity early in my career. And now I'm doing that now, get to represent a ton of different clients, small nonprofit organizations, universities, Fortune 500 companies. So it kind of runs the gamut on the issues that I get to work on. But it's really great that it's never the same day twice. You're always learning something new when you're advocating for your clients.
Did I get it? Thank you. So I'm an attorney and an equity partner at a law firm. We're mid to large size for New Jersey. And I advise a lot of governmental entities when it comes to labor and employment, higher education, municipal governance. And, I try to take what I do for the public service side of it, and I try to institute kind of my values into the guidance that I give, right? Attorneys do have an ability to look at the law differently. And so I try to make sure that it always fits the core value that I have of when I'm giving advice, right? And so I think that's an important part of how I have developed as an attorney. And some of the things I try to add into what I do and the guidance I give to my clients. And so, my day could be advising 10 different clients on 10 different issues. It could be working with, carpenters or the union side, dealing with bills or things that they're doing. I am a registered lobbyist, but I only do that when I need to for my current clients. I try not to do that on a daily basis. And, I've got a long career that Jean went through, so I won't get into that too much. And I'll kind of pass it on, I think, at this point.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. Currently, as Jean said, I'm the managing director at a lobbying firm, Stevens & Lee Public Affairs. It's been an interesting transition going from the government side to the private sector, and I've really been enjoying it. At our firm, we represent clients from the New Jersey Food Council. We worked with them on an organized retail crime bill that we got through the legislature and was signed by the governor. That was fantastic to work on. We've been working also, with clients on affordable housing issues, on a whole scope of things. But I think what's been the most interesting for me is that we're also working with clients from our law firm side who may have issues at the county or local level as well, which has kind of been a new and interesting aspect for me. So whether they're having an issue, say, with a permitting issue for a development or something like that, or, they are seeking to bring their business into the state and they've been operating in another state, we'll help them, set up meetings with local business administrators and things like that to introduce them to people here in the state. And so I think that's been kind of a new and interesting aspect for me that I've really been enjoying getting to do now.
Hi, everybody. I'm Catherine Tung. I'm a government affairs advisor, as Jean had highlighted, with McCarter English. We're a law firm based up in the city of Newark with an office in Trenton as well to allow me to do the day-to-day lobbying, before the legislature, executive branch. And I think what I do now is really a summation of what all the three previous speakers had mentioned, right? I am a contract lobbyist, meaning that I work on a client basis. We're also industry agnostic, meaning that our clients really run the gamut from, I was at a groundbreaking for University Hospital this morning. We work on reentry services initiatives. We work with school-based health mental organizations. So there are really a ton of different clients that hire us and to seek our experience to help navigate whatever it is that they might be setting forth, right? Whether it is to make an introduction to a local municipal officer, it's kind of our business development bucket, or it's to introduce a piece of legislation and work it through that legislative process and onto the governor's desk to ultimately help them achieve whatever business operation goal that it is that they cannot currently do and that a bill would then allow them to do, or on the reverse, right? Maybe there is a pending legislation that would be incredibly harmful and detrimental to the work that they are trying to do. So our clients really come to us on a number of issues here, and even taking it a step back, right? I came to contract lobbying by way of working on legislative staff, where I really cultivated the relationships with members of leadership, with other legislators, with members across the aisle, really honing in on those relationships, because the world that we work in is so insular, and that I knew that if I wanted then to be, a lobbyist one day, I would have to really lean in on those relationships, right? And you can see from all of our careers that those can be cultivated in a number of ways, but it really is all about just a relationship kind of game and mapping out what those kinds of looks like to help you get to where you are in your career. But again, like on a day-to-day lobbyist for clients, really kind of just runs the gamut on whatever it is that I might be doing. So excited to be here.
Thank you all. That was really helpful. I'm curious about, it's one of the questions I think we get a lot is to go back to where you got started. And you may or may not have envisioned your career would go exactly this way. Like maybe you're offered something that you didn't quite expect. If you were to go back to who you were at the beginning of your career, was there a thing that helped? What was it, in other words, that made you think, oh, I might go into a career in politics and government? And then what are the things that happened that got you started, I guess? And we could start the other direction and come down.
Sure. So I see a few familiar faces in here. I see a few of my students from my Dairy and Civic Engagement Project class, and I also see a few of the fellows from New Leadership. So sorry if this sounds redundant, but my story is really kind of just by happenstance. I don't think anybody grows up saying, I want to be a political staffer or I want to be a contract lobbyist, right? Those aren't careers that are kind of tailored for you. Like, I feel like, especially growing up in an immigrant household, right? It's like, all right, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I get queasy at blood. So I kind of chose the lawyer path. But even though I work at McCarter English, I'm not an attorney. But all that being said, I really stumbled upon my first internship because I think being an undergrad at TCNJ, it was really prioritized that I needed to make my resume a little more robust. I needed to get certain things on there. I needed to get certain experience levels if I wanted to apply to law school, right? It was kind of like, all right, let's start building out, let's start shaping out this person of who you are as a student to then apply for that next stage. So I saw an internship posting on a bulletin board. I don't think I knew who it was for, what an assembly member did at the time. I'm not sure I even checked that this member's party affiliation aligned with mine. I knew that it was an internship opportunity. I would get course credit for it, and it was down the street from my college in Ewing. So I applied, I met the legislator, and that was really my first introduction into the district office and what they did. And I was really amazed at their capacity to help constituents, right? You would have seniors walking in from downtown saying, hey, I can't afford my mortgage this month. Like, what programs might you have? Or we would, honor a young student who just achieved their Eagle Scout ceremony. So it was really a great introduction into just helping the community and being involved. And from that opportunity, I was then introduced to, the folks actually at the New Jersey and Business Industry Association, where Alexis had interned. I knew I needed that next internship. I was like, all right, let me see what else is kind of in this policy world, right? Applied to be a government affairs intern there, worked there for a semester. And then I was then introduced to my first boss, I guess, post-college at the Apartment Association, where I really helped them with their professional development portfolio and also on some government affairs, right? Tracking bills, monitoring committee hearings, just really kind of looking at what things our members might care about. And that route, though, it looks in hindsight like very predetermined and very rigid in what I was going to do. It really wasn't for me, right? Because I kind of stumbled into it. Ultimately, did not go to law school and did not pursue that path because I really saw what the world of policy, politics, and government had to offer. So it was really by happenstance.
I guess I caught the bug early. I went to the University of Richmond, and I was a history and political science major, and always had an interest in politics. And so I grew up in Massachusetts, so I interned for my Democrat congressman. And, I think like Kat said, I got to experience what a district office is like, how you're helping individual constituents on a daily basis from, my dog is barking next door. What can you do about it? That kind of thing too. I, have something that could, really help the congressman in terms of helping with this idea, So, it was a great experience, to talk to constituents and to work with them. And then when I was still attending college in Virginia, I ended up interning with a delegate in the Virginia General Assembly, and then also stayed down in Virginia one summer and worked for the state GOP. So I got a little bit of the sort of campaign exposure and things like that. And then, I did decide to go to law school. I went to Dickinson in Pennsylvania, and I quickly learned that I didn't think private practice was going to be my thing. I did an internship with a family law practitioner, and I just got too depressed every day, with hearing, about the situations that these families were facing. And so then I did get an opportunity to intern with the Assembly legal staff and Assembly Republican legal staff in Pennsylvania. It's kind of interesting. Their system is each caucus has an office of attorneys, who actually work on the bill drafting and things like that. So that was a fantastic experience. And, rather than here where it's more of the nonpartisan Office of Legislative Services that handles all those issues. So that was great. And, I then went on to work, like, Jean said, for the Ridge administration in Pennsylvania. It was a little interesting because I had two options. I had also applied to work for the Senate Republican legal staff, and I had turned down a job with the Ridge administration, but then the Ridge administration got back to the Senate and said, no, we want her, so don't take her. And so I ended up doing, the job with the administration, which was a great experience. And it was, I think it was fate, because then my husband and I decided to relocate to New Jersey. He's originally from New Jersey. And, an opening in Governor Whitman's counsel's office handling education issues was open. So that was great because I had worked with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So I do think it was fate. And, but yeah, I encourage all of you to take advantage of any internship opportunities that you can get, because I know it just leads you to get that experience and connections. And like Catherine said, it's like you're building a network, and that's really important.
So I'm definitely different than the panelists here because I am a full-blown attorney, meaning I bill my hours. This is what I do, right? I practice every day. And so, mine started a little differently. When I was 13, I did decide that I wanted to get involved in politics because I wanted to have a voice. And I also thought that to be in politics, you needed to be an attorney because, again, there are a lot of attorneys in what we do. And so I actually met two operatives that were working on campaigns actually right next door. There was a snowstorm. There weren't a lot of people here. I think they ended up being 3 people in something like this, but because it was snowing, there was 3 of us. So we were next door, and there was an operative for the R side and operative for the D side. And they asked us, hey, why aren't you involved, right now? And my answer was pretty simple. Listen, I have to work. I need to get paid. My parents can't support me all the time, right? Like that's kind of something that's necessary. And so the Democratic operative, Maggie Moran, she appreciated that. She was running a coordinated campaign statewide. And so I went in to interview with her and I got the job. So I started working in politics at a very high level when I was very, very young. I think I was 19, 20 at the time. And being her assistant was great because I got to see everything because she ran the entire coordinated campaign. So after being involved for a while, because we ended up winning that campaign, we went into transition. The individual was going to be the governor for our state, and so I ended up working in state government again at a very young age. I hadn't even finished college yet, which Rutgers, amazing. And so I decided that I wanted to, of course, finish my college degree. And what I did realize at the time is that I never wanted to be beholden to an elected official. They can be special at times. Right? And so I wanted to make sure that I had some background, some certificate, something that I could stand on my own. And so that's why I decided to, okay, I'm still going to go, even though I already started doing politics. I already work in state government. I've worked with, senators and all of them. I'm still going to go to law school. I'm still going to get my degree, and that's again Rutgers Camden. Big, love it. And from there, I started doing more of the law side, but in combination with the politics, right? My theory is if you're involved, it's because you understand the importance of it. So to me, it's not politics. It's just I care about my neighbors. I care about being involved. And so when I went to law school, once I graduated, I did do a clerkship for Superior Court with Judge Thornton. And then I also did a federal one who is now a district judge, and his name is Judge Ship. And so I think these opportunities were great because they allowed me to have mentors that I could reach out to, people to bounce ideas off of. They are still mentors. One of them is still a mentor now. The other one has unfortunately passed away to me now. And they're always the people that I call. So when you're doing and kind of looking at your next steps, always look at the opportunities that are available to you, because I think it'll help you broaden your network, build a coalition that can stand behind you and help you, and also open doors for you.
So I knew I wanted to get involved in politics when I was in high school. I was in student government, and I grew up in Bayonne. And at that time when I was in school, we were the second most underfunded district in the state. So I would go to the board meetings and hear about, funding cuts, teachers being laid off, all that sort of stuff. And I was like, where is this coming from? Why don't we have any money? And that all leads back to state government. So that really led me to being interested because I saw a problem in my community. My mom was a teacher too, and she was on a contract freeze for years because they just didn't have money to give the teachers raises. So that led me to be interested in politics and looking more into what goes on at the state level, because I know we all see, the headlines about what's going on in Washington, but I think the state is a little bit underrated. I think it's the best place to be, but I really learned from there that everything really flows through trend. So that's where I got my interest to major in political science. And when I went to college, I went to Rider University. After my freshman year, I interned at the Rutgers Institute, which is their political institute there. And I knew I wanted to have an internship over the summer, but I didn't have a car and I couldn't get to Trenton. So I asked Dr. Dworkin, who was running the political institute there, I was like, I can't really get anywhere. I really want an internship. I want to have an opportunity. What do you think you can do? So he called Kayla Causey, who runs a contract lobbying firm. She was in Hoboken at that time. Her firm's Hoboken Strategy Group. And I was like, well, I can get there on the light rail and I can walk down the street a couple blocks to get to her firm. So he called her. She had never had interns before. And he's like, please just take her. She's really great. This will be a good opportunity. So I worked with her and it was like the best experience ever. She, like I said, has a contract lobbying firm. I didn't know what contract lobbyists were, what they did. I knew what a lobbyist was, but I didn't realize like literally every single issue, company, everything has a lobbyist. And that was my first like entree to that. And I really liked the work that she did and the impact that she was able to have. So that led me to know I wanted to go kind of into the lobbying side. From there, I interned with the New Jersey Business and Industry Association for 2 semesters. Then I went down to DC for a summer and a semester, interned for a member of Congress, and interned at the Republican National Committee as well. I did an internship with the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office. I hated that one, so that told me that was not for me. It's not something that I should do. But I think even that is valuable experience. Try everything while you're in college. Take every opportunity that you can, because you're going to find what you like and you don't like. And regardless, you're going to learn a skill, pick something up, meet an individual while you're there. So it's all valuable and leads you where you need to be at the end of the day. But my motto while I was in college was just take every single opportunity. It's great that you guys are here at programs like this. Anything that you can do just to meet people, pick their brains. There's always something to learn. I know you're going to talk about programs that Rutgers runs, but I was in the new leadership program. Arlene was actually the faculty in residence when I was there. So yeah, so anything like that really just helped me. And when I went to apply for jobs and looking for opportunities, I was able to reach back to my network and just ask for advice, ask for help. And everyone in the industry, like Kat said, it's very insular. Everybody kind of knows each other, knows what opportunities are opening up. So I was able to really rely on my network that I had cultivated while in college to launch me to my first job.
Thank you for that. This was great, and that's a great story about Kayla Causey, by the way. I did not know that. So I don't know if you've all been picking up on some of the themes that I picked up on what everyone said, which various things I've heard is you might not know things, but you can learn. You should take advantage of opportunities, try everything. As Arlene pointed out, you also have to assess your practical needs. Like, do you need to make money now? And that's okay. And then what does that mean for you? What Alexis just said, you need to have the ability to ask for help, right? But the thing that I have learned is that almost anyone in politics and government is willing to help you if you just ask, right? I mean, at least they're willing to help students. So I hope you're like thinking about some of these things, because it's always okay to ask for help. It's really hard to do that, but definitely you should. And I also was sort of struck by some different things that you all said in terms of your jobs and what you're doing. It seems like a lot of politics and government involves problem solving, right? It doesn't seem like it. It does. It's a lot of problem solving, and you have to be comfortable with that, right? And it makes me think of sort of people who are thinking about starting careers or looking as they're building their resumes. What kind of skills do you look for in people? If you were looking for an intern or someone to work in your firm, what would be, maybe they don't have a ton of experience, maybe it's a junior position, what do you want them to demonstrate to you? And, any of you can jump in. What kinds of things? Problem solving is one of them, but.
Can I say like one specific thing? If you have on your resume something that you don't think is directly related to the job you're applying for, odds are it probably still is. I ran the internship program at the Assembly Majority Office for a few years. Any resume that came in, if you didn't have a ton of experience, we had worked in a restaurant or in hospitality, I was going to have a conversation with you, because those are critical skill sets that are going to carry with you through every single job in your life, whether it's dealing with a difficult customer, a difficult client, a difficult legislator, right? There are a lot of softer skills that you will be able to hone and cultivate in experiences that might not seem immediately related, but are very much tangentially so. So I don't know if that's the kind of answer you were looking for, but something like that is always really, really helpful, right? So don't remove the things that you might not think are related, but just kind of keep those things on, because there are softer skills that we'll look out for.
Yeah, I'm always looking for work ethic. It is literally my thing, right? So if I'm in the office and getting there early and leaving later than you are, that's a problem. If I'm, asking you to do something little and you're saying, no, I don't want to do it, yeah, that's not acceptable, right? Your work ethic is your core. I can teach you almost anything you need to know, and certainly in the legal side, but that work ethic, it's either there or it's not. And if it's not there, I suggest you develop it very quickly.
Yeah, I'd agree that I think that's the most important thing. I think especially in this industry, you want to see someone that's hungry. And to me, like Arlene said, we can teach you how to read a bill. We can introduce you to the legislature, explain the dynamics of what's going on. But if you're curious, you're ready to work. I mean, I was in Congress. I like cleaned moldy Keurigs, like whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that that's going to be something you have to do, but like, are you willing to do any job that people ask you for? Like nothing is above you. I think you should definitely have that mindset. I think no matter how high you end up, you should still have that mindset. But I think as a young person breaking into the industry, being the person that's willing to do any job, stay late, come on the weekend event, that's the person that when a job opening comes up, you're going to think, oh, that person worked really hard. Let me bring them in. So I think that's the most important thing that you can have in this industry and really any industry.
I'd second that. I'd also just say too, never be afraid to ask questions. Don't pretend you know something. That's like the biggest cardinal sin. I mean, I'd see young staffers, talk to senators and say, oh, it's this, this, and this, but they really didn't know So just admit that you don't know and find out, and be willing to work hard to find out the answers,
And I'd say too, a small thing, make sure you know how to write. I've had some interns lately that I'm like, I know this came straight from ChatGPT. So it's still a valuable skill to know how to write your own stuff and make sure that if you're like, don't send just a ChatGPT thing. If you're going to use it as background, learn something, check your source, like all for it, use it as it's a tool, but make sure you still know how to write your own stuff and read your own summaries and everything like that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that is so true. And we even noticed that in some things that students send us, that I would rather, you don't have to be the best writer in the world, but if you're clear and direct, I would much rather read that than read something that obviously looks like it came from AI. So, and also will just serve you well in life in so many ways if you can develop your writing skills. And if you're not good at it, you can take a class, all of that stuff. So are there any challenges that you encountered in your career that if you were to give advice to yourself back then, you would either, I don't know, navigate it differently, or you learned how to overcome it? I don't know. It's a pretty broad question, but is there a job you didn't, you don't have to share all your secrets, but is there something you thought you were going to do and you just, it was a hurdle for you and it just took some time to think about, how do I have to navigate around that?
I'd say perseverance, believing in yourself. When my husband and I first decided to relocate to New Jersey, I spent a year looking for a job, and I was really upset because I had given up something good in Pennsylvania, and I'm just like, okay, maybe I do go into private practice, or something like that. But I took going to church of all things. Like I sat there and I prayed. I was like, okay, God, let something come through. And then it finally did, I don't know why, but it finally did. But and also just, I think for those of us who've worked with the legislature, you live through changes in leadership and, you're working for, like you said, you didn't want to be reliant on one particular person. And then that's always difficult, but you had to persevere, work hard, and prove yourself, no matter who the leader is you were working for. So.
Yeah, I would say being certainly at the time young and Latina, it's not a challenge, right? But it is something that you have to be aware of, and it's something you always have to be mindful of when you're in rooms that look nothing like you at all, right? And so I think for me, I always wanted to make sure that I stayed true to my values and what was important to me. Maybe even if I was in a room that wasn't like that. And I think one of the things I've always tried to do is make sure I bring people with me, right? To make sure those rooms start to change and start to look a little bit more like New Jersey, for example. And one of the things I've always kind of told people is that, I don't necessarily want to see it at the table, right? I actually want to take that table, burn it in a bonfire, and make it huge so that we can all fit around it, right? Because we get the best ideas when all of us are together and when all of us are thinking in different ways to figure out how to approach an issue. And I would say the other part that's probably challenging on the political side is being the Hunterdon County chair. When I did it for a decade, when I came in, Hunterdon County is still very R. I like to think we're a little more purple now. We flipped 50 seats. We took a congressional seat, but it was challenging. I was in an area that definitely didn't look like me. I was definitely the youngest one at the table, but it was just about making sure, we all had the same values, right? I knew that they were thinking the same way as I, even if we didn't look the same. I knew we kind of wanted the same things, and so leadership does not come without challenges. That's just part of it, and it's how you address those challenges that makes you effective.
I'd say a challenge when I started lobbying is being very young. I have had conversations when I'm talking to a legislator, talking to them about a bill, and they're like, how old are you again? And I'm like, if I was older, it would be really offensive for you to ask me that. But it's like, yeah, you could probably be my grandparent, but I still, I'm representing my industry or my client, and this is what I know about the bill, and kind of giving your pitch that way. So I think in those types of situations, I always just try to make sure that I'm staying true to myself. I present myself in a certain way, whether that's, I make sure that I'm dressed properly and all those sort of things. And I'm always going to be young. It is what it is. I mean, one day I'll be older, but for now, I'm young. It is what it is. But I know my stuff. I know I'm hired for a reason, and I know the job that I'm here to do. So if you just present yourself accordingly and, brush those things off, you're going to have people that might assume something about you for your age, your looks, whatever, your race. You kind of just have to brush that off and kind of know it is what it is. Like Arlene said, the rooms are changing, but sometimes you might be the only one of whatever fill in the blank it is. So that's always a challenge, but you just have to remember who you are and the knowledge that you have and the job that you're there to do.
Yeah, to that point too, right? I think there's a little bit of just over preparing for whatever it is that you might be entering into, whether it's a job interview, whether it's, a room like this coming in here tonight, and then the networking portion that we're having after. I just like to take a few minutes for myself. I feel like when you do present yourself and you feel good and you look good, it really does make a difference. I think there's a level of confidence. You walk in with your shoulders a little higher. And I think in any situation, doing it for the first time, the second time, the third time, there's always imposter syndrome associated with it. But then you get more comfortable, right? And you learn the tactics that might work for you, whether it's sitting in your car for 5 minutes before walking into the Eagleton Institute and saying like, all right, here are the 3 things that I really want to talk to somebody about tonight. Just kind of taking some time. I think we're all running a million miles a minute. Social media does not help. Our doom scrolling does not help. And I think we're just getting so much incoming of information at all times that it really just is like 30 seconds to a minute of kind of recentering and saying to yourself, all right, this is what I need to know about this bill. This is what I need to know about this legislator. You're going to a fundraiser for that member. Did you last have a conversation with them about their new dog? Ask them about that, right? Taking the time just to think about these things will make you feel a lot more confident and will help overcome any of that imposter syndrome that I think many of us probably have, especially as a younger minority women in a room that might not look like us.
Thank you for that. So I want to go back a little bit just to thinking about for some, and I don't know, I'm going to go to questions. So you may all start thinking about your questions now. But if you're somebody who thinks I really want to do politics and government, or it's interesting enough that I want to start pursuing it, just sounds to me a little bit like in some cases it's happenstance when an opportunity comes along and you don't even realize necessarily that that's the one you wanted or that it's going to develop into something else. What if you're trying to think about, should I do state government versus local government versus going into the lobbying side of things right from the beginning, working in government as a staff member? What should students be thinking about? Or does it really kind of, I'm asking this because when I was a student, I remember just sending my resume out everywhere. And then it was sort of like your career starts in some ways to follow a path, right? But so if you have any advice for students in thinking about the process of trying to decide where they might want to begin.
Unless you really know what you want, I'm not sure you do, right? So I think what Jean did about sending resumes everywhere is not a bad thing, right? And sometimes it's good to be able to get the next job once you have one. And then you can decide, okay, wait, I got this job. I like this, but I really don't like this. And then you start looking for the next place. So that could be a year, it could be 10 years. It could just be, what is my next step, right? To continue to get me to something that I love the entirety of what I'm doing. I don't know, a job's good when it's paying. Right? So
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is just try it. I think the benefit of being in college is you're going to do an internship for a couple months. If you don't like it, it's done in a couple months. So if you're thinking about, I might want to go in local government, try it for a few months. If you hate it, then do an internship in state government. You want to try DC, see if you can go down there and see how it goes. The only thing that was told to me when I was in college was if I wanted to work in DC politics, then I should commit, go down there and do it kind of thing, versus coming back and wanting to stay in the state. But again, I went down, I tried it. I liked working in DC, but I liked the state a lot better. And for me, thinking long-term in the future, I was like, my whole family's here. When I'm a little bit older and get married and have children, what do I want my life to kind of look like? And I thought I'd rather be closer and be at home and stay in Jersey. So that was kind of the only consideration for me. But I think try everything. If you don't like it, you're there for a couple months, you're going to learn something and you can move on to the next thing.
Totally agree. Nothing's permanent, right? So just like give it a shot, and even give it a shot if it's something that you might not think that you were even interested in at all, right? Like, hey, there's this organization, they're hiring for interns. Seems cool, but I don't really know anything about this specific policy issue, right? Give it a shot. I think it's like a few weeks of your time. It's nothing that is permanent. And if you don't like it too, maybe there's other skills that you could have garnered from that experience. Maybe you really like the person that you were working for, right? Sometimes I think an internship opportunity is also really about like the team that you're going to be reporting to and the team that you're going to be surrounding yourself with, because sure, you can kind of apply online and kind of throw out your resume into this, abyss, and maybe you'll hear back from a few. But it's also about getting that mentor really early on. And you're not going to know who the right person is when you're just kind of applying blindly. But LinkedIn, stalk them, right? Maybe you see an organization and go on their LinkedIn profile. Maybe the executive director's, LinkedIn profile really mimics a career path that you might one day want to have. That might be a good person for you to work for and to learn from, and a good person for you to then sit down with and be like, hey, look, I know my internship's coming to an end. Here are the 3 other things that I might be interested in. Do you know somebody you could refer me to, right? It is all about getting your foot in the door and then making the ask that you want to make.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And also I would just say too, it's interesting working for the executive branch versus the legislative branch. I mean, the executive branch, you're going to get more into the implementation of the laws and the regulations, and that's kind of fun, in terms of you actually, get to see how it's going to impact people on a day-to-day basis. Whereas in the legislature, it's a little bit more at 30,000 feet, and we pass statutes and hope they get implemented by the executive branch. But so you might think about what you like doing and try for that first if you have a desire to do one or the other. Local government too is fascinating to me the more I learn about it too, because there is a lot of power at the local level,
Jersey.
I mean, it's crazy, when you look at it. So, I mean, that's kind of fun too. So, just think about what you like,
The only other thing I would add is if you get a paying job, right, because most of us do need to have some type of living wage, and it's not exactly what you're looking for or what you necessarily want to do, go volunteer somewhere, right? That's always an option. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard, right? There's only 24 hours in the day, but you got to decide what's important to you and you have to work towards it. So that's always available to you. Get your pay, not exactly what you want, but you go volunteer at whatever organization or a campaign. They're always looking for volunteers. As long as you're making someone else's life easier, they will always keep you around.
Yeah, and I'd say too, I know when I was in college, I don't know if Rutgers has something like this, but there was the Rutgers Institute for New Jersey Politics had like a stipend program that they would give out to political interns because they knew that a lot of them weren't paid. So if there's anything like that you can look into, because obviously being able to make money is something that we all need. But especially if you're looking at those unpaid internships, there might be something like that you can look into that might make it work if it's not something that would work for you otherwise.
Yes, and I will say, well, in addition to our new leadership program, which is every summer, which is a short 5 to 6 day program, Rutgers does have a DC internship program and then also state government internships. Some of you may know about them or be part of that, but they're definitely, and I think a lot of universities have something as far as I know, but they're definitely worth investigating. And if you don't know, you can ask us and we'll help you find out what's there. I have other questions, but do any of you have burning questions that you've been wanting to ask? Go ahead.
Sometimes I feel like I'm doing too much, and sometimes I feel that I'm doing too little. So I just want to know how much volunteering is important.
Sounds like a lot to me.
The only thing I would say is, when I get a resume and I see someone that's joined like 10 different organizations, generally, it is my belief that there's no way you are doing something for all 10, right? I'd much prefer you pick one, do it very, very well, get known by the people that I'm going to call, so that when I call for a reference and I see that you're working on, some person's campaign and I call them and they don't know who you are, it's not helping you. Like if that is your goal, right? Other than helping and helping community stuff, right? But if your goal is this is my next step, that's not helping you. So to me, I'd rather see you did one. I can call that person. They're going to be like, yeah, she is great. He's great. He picked up the garbage even when I didn't need to, right? And that sounds silly, but that is campaign work. Went and put out signs. So that's the only advice I would give you on that. Do something, and when you decide what it is, do it very, very well.
Sure. I think it was when you're working on staff, which I did for about 5 years, right, working for the Speaker of the General Assembly, I think there comes a natural flow in the cadence of the legislative cycle where you're like, all right, it's a 2-year cycle, bills are being reintroduced. A lot of the initiatives are kind of, not the same, but stuff that I've worked on for a while, and I kind of wanted to then see the other side of things, right? When I was on staff, I was really intentional about the committees that I worked on, the bills that I worked on, because of the interaction with the private sector, right? So I staffed the Commerce and Economic Development Committee. I worked with a lot of companies that came to New Jersey looking for tax incentives, looking to, build out whatever projects it might be in urban areas here in New Jersey. And that was something I was just really interested in. So I was really intentional about working on certain issues that I knew would then make really helpful private sector introductions, right? And that wasn't my goal going into it, but I knew that eventually would be my next step, wanting to be a contract lobbyist. I think transitioning over is just really about, I'm big on asking for opportunities. I'm big on putting out feelers about when I think it's time for me to explore different opportunities. I never turn down a conversation to grab a coffee with somebody or an opportunity to chat with somebody about what that potential career path might look like. And there are so many different opportunities in the private sector too, right? Here, and there's contract lobbying, which many of us here do. There's trade association lobbying, right? So when you're representing an industry of issues. So when I was at the Apartment Association, it's an association representing multifamily owners, developers, and managers, or the Business Industry Association representing businesses across the state. There's also in-house lobbying too, as kind of the private sector, right? When you're working for an actual company. So there's a lot of different opportunities out there. I think it's up to you to see what that next step might be and how you could leverage the opportunities that you have now within state government to get those introductions and to get that face time with the right people.
For me, it was about relationships. I mean, our senior managing director was the executive director of the Assembly Majority Office. We got to know each other over the years while I was executive director of the Senate Republican Office, and he's a fantastic mentor. And Catherine knows, she worked for him. He was great. So for me, I think that was part of the draw, and also I wanted a new challenge. I had worked in state government for over 25 years, and, I said, okay, it's time for a change. My son was graduating from college, I was like, so I felt like it was time for me to explore something new and have a new challenge, and that's what this has been. It's been fantastic, so.
Hi, my name is Yvonne. I'm a senior at Rutgers and also new leadership alumni. I was just wondering, how do you guys deal with rejection, especially as a student to be post-grad? It's a really hard job market right now. So I guess how do you overcome it and really keep hope, but then also try to reach out to your network more?
They don't know you, right? So rejection should slip past you. But I would say that you should learn from it. So if they rejected you, look at your resume. Is it actually formatted the way you need it to show what this particular company or whatever is looking for, right? Reach out to your networks or your whoever might be mentoring you, talk to them, show them your resume. I would look at things like that to figure out how do I make myself more appealing to whatever it is I'm applying for. So again, rejections, they don't know you, right? That's just the world. It's what it is. But always look to make yourself better at the same time. And you can always, with a rejection, ask for feedback. Why? Just be comfortable getting it and learning from it.
I think for me, I'm a little bit more shy. So I think that's the one area where I feel like I really have to push myself to reach out more than I would maybe be comfortable doing. But I think in this industry, it's really all about relationships and, it's all who you know. So I think it's just about being yourself and being authentic and genuine. Like, I'm not the person that's going to be like, hey, what's going on? And like jumping around the room talking to every single person. That's just not my personality. And I think people can tell when you're like overselling. And if that's not you, that's not genuine, don't do that. But I think it's just making sure that you have those genuine connections. You're going to meet people that you really click with. And the ones that you really, really click with, I say lean into that. Go have breakfast with people, coffee with them. And even people that you don't want to be best friends in the world with, but that you still connect with. You think that, you guys work well together. Just reach out to people. Facebook, LinkedIn, all those things make it really easy to make sure you're saying happy birthday to people on their birthdays and little things like that. Or seeing when people get married or have kids or things like that and post pictures. So just interacting on those small things, I think, are easy for people that might be a little bit more shy. And then, do one-on-one conversations, coffees with people when you can in whatever setting you really feel comfortable with. But I think just be genuine to who you are. So you don't want to come off as like you're making a sales pitch about yourself all the time to people. I think that's the best way to handle it.
Want to put your time into something where you aren't delivering?
Yeah, I think even in that experience when I cleaned a moldy Keurig in college, I was still in a congressional office doing a lot of constituent calls, answering emails and things like that. So you will have hard deliverables from whatever internship that you're in. You're going to have written a paper on something, whatever, while you're there. But I think the biggest thing that you should be focused on in your internships in college is like not per se the hard deliverables that you have, but really like the concepts and things that you learned. Like even just from being in a congressional office or a district office, like you're seeing how they deal with constituents. How are you answering the phone for the person that calls every single day with the same problem? And how are you helping them? Because you can't fly off the handle or have an attitude or anything like that. Or if you're working on a piece of legislation, what did you learn about how to read that bill? What did you learn about the players that are on that committee and how you had to interact with them? How did that lobbyist handle those conversations or handle the meeting where the legislator's like, no, I'm absolutely not doing that. But your client's like, you have to get this done. So I think, and those are the things that I think people will ask you more about in interviews in your first jobs. Like, yes, they might say, you know, hard skills, what things did you learn? But I think you being able to talk about some of the lessons that you've learned or things that you've picked up on, even just the interpersonal things that you might gather from an internship, I think that's a lot more important in my opinion than, you know, essay or paper or something like that you wrote while you were there.
Yeah, I think this world is super based on relationships, as you've been hearing us all talk about, but your network really begins with that first internship, right? So the person that you are, how you carry yourself, how the work ethic, you know, what you've done that other people will see will matter a lot more than like the, you know, facilitated XYZ calls, right? I feel like we're all very focused on like resume building and what like bulleting out exactly what it is that we did. And those are super important skills too, but also think about some of the softer and interpersonal skills that you are building, that you are working on, and the people that are now in your network, right? Because that really begins day one. Somebody that you might be working with or for in an internship could be your boss one day, or you could be their boss one day, right? It's such a revolving door of the same cast of characters, and they'll always remember you and your work ethic beyond, the actual hard metrics that you've produced.
I just want to add to, and I don't know if you all agree, but I guess you would, that one thing that we see a lot is I look for students who are willing to pick up the phone and call people. And so I think if you could somehow, one, actually learn to do that if you don't already do it, and put that out there as something that you would like to do. I mean, it's not like, you're going to be making big sales calls or anything right away, but just like demonstrating those communication skills, it's actually harder to find, I think, and it's part of the relationship building. I think that's like a huge value add. And we're like, oh, they're willing to call people. That's really, really good. So just something to think about. Other questions? Oh, yes.
Hi, my name is Gabriela. May I encourage
I think having a LinkedIn profile is super important, right? When I'm hiring somebody for an internship or a job, I'm going to internet search you to see who you are, if you're a real person. So I think just having like a professional profile, right? Having your full name that's easily searchable on LinkedIn, having a professional headshot, right? A nice photo of you where I can see your face, wearing a jacket, looking professional, I think is super important. And then in terms of like your resume experience, I think start with whatever it is that you might be working on now. It's kind of like the present day and current experience that you have, and then pick some of the most relevant things that you want to build behind that, right? So it shows that there is longevity, and it does show that you have worked in different industries, different positions, whatever the situation might be. I also just think it's like a really helpful way to keep in touch, right? Like after this, I always welcome whenever I speak on a panel for students to add me on LinkedIn afterwards, because I think it's a good way to softly keep in touch with folks, and maybe you'll be inspired by someone taking an internship position or seeing a career update, and you're like, oh wow, like I remember when I sat next to that person, and that class or that panel might be worth connecting to somebody too. And I think the other piece of that too is informational interviews are a huge part of, I think, being a student, whether it's undergrad or grad, and just reaching out to somebody. I think folks in this world are really, really willing to help, right? Like we're all here on a Thursday night chatting with you all because we want to be. And I think we want to share our career experience. I know I was lucky enough to have had amazing mentors. I can only hope to do that for somebody else moving forward in my career. But folks are really happy to talk about their experience, what they have learned, what they haven't learned, and just any sort of guidance, right? So always reach out. I think a friendly no is never a bad thing. They don't answer you. It's kind of like what Arlene said about rejection. They don't know you and you don't know them, right? So like, what do you have to lose from that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. And I mean, I've had people just sort of get in touch with me out of the blue, and I'm, say, can we do an informational interview? And I do that all the time, and it's great. I mean, because I like talking to people, and I like trying to share what my experience has been, and hopefully it's been helpful. So don't be afraid to do that, And I mean, and if you've been interested or involved in some, events or something that you've done for, in your current employment, it's always good to post a picture. It's engaging, with people. So I think that's great.
So this hour flew by. Emily's going to come up, and first of all, I do want to say thank you to Emily. I forgot to do it in the beginning. This whole event is possible because Emily put it together. So we're grateful, and she's gonna come up and talk. We did build in time for networking so that you would have an opportunity to actually talk to each of these people. But before we do that, before I turn it to Emily, I want to say thank you all so much for doing this. I mean, really, really grateful.